What's up, guys? So we got a new video for you. Today we're sticking with some more death metal, but this time I'm going through my top 15 favorite albums recorded in Sunlight Studios. So if you know the history with that studio, this was definitely a very hard list to put together, only 15. This easily could have been like 25 plus, but yep, let's get into it. And there's no repeats, and if I forgot to mention, well, I need to mention this first off. This was inspired by a video that Marc did where he went through his top 10 favorite albums recorded in Rose Sound, so I thought that was a cool idea for a video. Wanted to do my own twist on that, so yeah, obviously I'll leave his video linked down below. First we were listening to something definitely not recorded there. This is Helveto with Medieval Stream. This is their third album from 2003, I believe. If you don't know Helveto, they are a symphonic / pagan black metal band from Poland. Well, they were. I don't think they're together anymore, but yeah. I don't have a long history with this band. I'm a relatively new fan, but from what I've heard, I like. So yep, good symphonic kind of pagan stuff. Let's get into it. This is the only tape I'm going to show. This is Grave with You'll Never See. I like most of the Grave material, but this is definitely my favorite. I think it's like the best production and like the best vocals too. The title track is definitely probably my favorite song by them. You'll Never See Heaven. Awesome. But yeah, this is their second record from 1992, I believe. Because I know Into the Grave was 91, and I think Souls was 94, 95. So yep. Grave You'll Never See. Definitely one of the better albums from the Swedish Four. Though I have my own personal Swedish Four, but anyway, that doesn't matter. It's a debate for another day. But yep, check it out. Grave You'll Never See. And I'm not going to attempt to put these in order. That would be impossible, because just picking the 15 alone was difficult enough. Alright, so this one I kind of forgot. This was actually a Sunlight Studio recording, because this doesn't sound like a typical Sunlight Studio style album at all. This is Amorphis with Tales from the Thousand Lakes. So definitely I would say, if you know the Sunlight Studio sound, they were definitely, I would say, the pioneers of the like HM tube thing. Like obviously you'll see that in this video, but this is definitely an album that showed that the guy who ran that studio could have some more like different influences or different, like, he wasn't just stuck in one thing. He was definitely able to explore his production style. But yep, probably my favorite Amorphis record is either this or the Cerulean Isthmus, but I tend to play this one more often because the Cerulean Isthmus is a great record in itself, but this one I think is a little bit more original, especially for the scene back then. I mean, still to this day, I don't think there's a single record that sounds like this. Definitely a very unique mixture of like death, doom, and a little bit of progressive elements in here too. But anyway, love that one. There's the painting. Definitely one of my favorite death metal artworks too. In the back, this is just a Relapse reissue from a few years ago, 2018. And then we some cool picture of an owl. That'd make an awesome t-shirt. And then the record just black, so I'm not gonna bother pulling that out. But yeah, man, Amorphis, Tales from the Thousand Lakes. Definitely, in my opinion, one of the most unique death metal albums still to this day. There isn't another one that I think that sounds like this. But yep, check it out. Amorphis, Tales from the Thousand Lakes, 1994 originally. Alright, this is a band I'm not a huge fan of, but I do like this album. This is honestly my favorite record by them. At the Gates with Feel I Kiss the Burning Darkness. Now I know most people are going to say, but Slaughter of the Soul, Slaughter of the Soul. Slaughter is good, but I've kind of heard that one too much, and honestly, it's kind of a little bit overhyped. I only say that because there's like some filler on that album, I think. Like the first 4 songs, or the first 3 plus World of Lies is awesome, and then the rest is kind of like not bad, just kind of whatever. But this, definitely I would say when they had Alf Svensson, that's when they were the most unique sounding. But anyway, once he left, they kind of became more a little generic sounding. But yeah. And obviously we know that every metalcore band in existence ripped off Slaughter of the Soul. That's not their fault, but oh well. So yeah, 1993. Listen to the last track on side 2, Through the Red. The opening riff on that is definitely one of their best riffs, but yeah. And then the opening song on side 1, Beyond Good and Evil is another favorite. The Break of Autumn, Raped by the Light of Christ. Yep. awesome album, definitely my favorite by At the Gates. And this is a 2023 peaceful reissue. It originally came out in 1993. I believe it was on Peaceful back then too, because I know on Slaughter they were signed to Earache, obviously. Yep, just black. And I think once they got back together, they went to Century Media, I want to say. So I think Slaughter was the only one on Earache. I think they were still on Peaceful with Spear. The third one, Spiritual Disease or whatever that one's called. But yep, At the Gates with Fear, Kiss the Burning Darkness. Like I said, not a huge ATG fan, but this album was great. Definitely the best in my opinion. Alright, so this band has been all over the shop as far as styles go, so you know where we're going with this one. Darkthrone, Soulside Journey. Like the Tales from the Thousand Lakes, it doesn't sound like this, but to me, I'm comparing them to because this is definitely a very unique death metal record that I haven't really heard any album that sounds like this afterwards. I mean, even Darkthrone couldn't replicate this. They're like, we want to play black metal now, which it would have been cool to hear one more album in this style. I mean, we had Ghost Lord, but that album's kind of whatever with not very good vocals, but yeah. Definitely one of the best early 90s death metal albums in my opinion. My favorite on here is probably Chromelac or Neptune Towers. I mean, that opening of Chromelac's great. Or Grave with a View, that's another highlight. So yep. 1991, obviously, but we all know that anyway, so. I love that cover art too, definitely one of the best artworks. The cool, like, spaceship, kind of Star Warsy theming, maybe. And on the back. When they were a 4-piece, and then I believe Transylvanian, no, after this, one of the guys left. Then Blaze and Funeral Moon, they were a 3-piece. And then since Transylvanian Hunger, it's just been Nocturnal, Kolto, and Fenris. Here's the lyrics. As wolves among sheep, we have wandered. Yeah, man, definitely in my, probably in my third favorite Darkthrone. It's Panzer Frost and Blaze, the top 2, but this one's definitely in the top 3, so yep. Great album. Like I said, it would have been cool to hear another one in this style, but at least we got one great death metal album from them, so check it out. Darkthrone, Soulside Journey. Of course, I had to mention this band, but you're probably wondering which one. Yes, I decided to choose Indecent and Obscene over like Everflowing Stream. I don't know. I know the debut's amazing too, obviously, because it has Overrider Overture, but my favorite all-time Dismember song is Skin Father. Skin Father, skin to be alive. Awesome riff in that song, great vocals too, and the breakdown. Dun 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 jump, dun 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 jump. So yeah. Again, 1993, definitely my favorite year in death metal, which I'm going to eventually do a 1993 death metal special, but we'll see about when I do that. Anyway, there is no bad Dismember record in my opinion, but this is definitely, I think, not their best. It's maybe the debut, but this is my favorite, so I'll put it that way. Anyway, definitely a very weird cover art though. In the back, obviously I've done the whole video just talking about my Dismember collection when I got that box set in, so I don't need to go over this in great detail again, but oh well. And then we have half the box was on blue and half was on yellow for some reason. It would have been cool if it was on red, but oh well. Doesn't really match the artwork, but just a small little nitpick, I guess. Yep, Dismember, Indecent and Obscene. There is no bad Dismember, but this is definitely my favorite. There you go, Indecent and Obscene. Amazing album, obviously. Since we talked about Dismember, you know what's coming next. Left Hand Path. As far as at this point with Entombed, honestly, all I need is this and the Crawley Peep. After that, the last few times I revisited Clandestine, I didn't really like it. It wasn't bad, just kind of meanders a little, waters a little bit with kind of not very good vocals from Nikki Anderson. It should have been the guy from Nirvana 2002 who was on the Crawl EP, but that's a story for a different day. Yeah, this is a great album, obviously, but honestly, I don't love it as much as a lot of people do. It's still a fantastic album, but I think there's some albums in the style that are a lot better, like this or the debut. I honestly prefer to this. There are some great songs in here, obviously, like the title track, Drowned, Revel in Flesh, Supposed to Rot. Those are definitely my favorites, so it is kind of side A heavy in my opinion, but oh well. Anyway, iconic cover art and the back. So this is an Earache reissue from 2017, which is, they had Earache. They wanted Earache back in the day. I'm not sure till when, what album, because by the time they left, I obviously don't really care about their later Earache material, but anyway. So my Left Hand Path. Great album, obviously, but it's one of those I wish I loved a little bit more. I've always kind of felt that way. There's some albums in this style I like more, but still essential, obviously. That's just me, I guess. So anyway, check it out, but you all should know it anyway. Entombed, Left Hand Path. This is I believe a one-off, not including the demos. This is 1991 or 92, around there. This is God Macabre with the Winterlong. So for me, of all of the OG Swedish death bands, to me this has the most influence from the Peaceville 3, especially like especially early Paradise Lost, like their first album in particular. I hear a lot of that in this album, like, so it's like slow and heavier, but there was still some fast up parts, obviously, but I just hear like creepy crawling riffs of early Paradise Lost. But yeah, definitely one of the more unique albums from the early Swedish scene, in my opinion. So yep, would have been cool to hear more, but at least we just got one great record and they didn't ruin their reputation by putting out a bunch of generic ones after. Anyway, there was the front, the back. This is a Hammerheart Records reissue from, doesn't say, but that's not important. Lyrics. So yeah, man, this is definitely one of the better one-and-done death metal albums from back in the day. So if you are not familiar and you want a Swedish album with some cool, a little bit of early Peaceville 3 stylings, give it a listen. So that is God Macabre with The Winterlong. Definitely a fantastic album. Alright, because it's me, you know what band has to come next. It seems like I mention this band in every video I do. You should say which one. Of course, I gotta mention Necrophobic somehow in one of my videos, but anyway. So this is Darkside from 1997. I go back and forth which I prefer, this or the Nocturnal Silence, but I decided to go for this one today. Definitely, I would say a little bit more black metal sounding than their debut, which their debut, there's a little bit of that, but I would say here they like upped the evilness, which the first one was evil too, but you know what I mean. There's some more like, I believe David Parlin was already in Darkthrone at the time, so maybe there was some overlap too, which would make perfect sense, but yeah. Favorite song here is definitely Nailing the Holy One. That's easily one of their best songs, which I wish they would have played that when I saw them, but they didn't, but oh well. So yeah, besides that, Black Moon Rising is obviously one of the more like fan favorite ones. Spawned by Evil, Bloodthirst, the title track, The Call, Christian Slaughter, but every song on this album is fantastic, so anyway. Cool painting, yeah, I think that's Necrolord, but anyway. There's the front. And the back, Hammerheart Records reissue from, I don't know, I've had this for a while, so. There's the guys in the band, and the lyrics. So yeah, man, you all know I love Necrophobic, so it's not a surprise that all this is being mentioned, but check it out. But this is a classic, so I'm sure you know all of these anyway, so I'm just speaking in the choir at this point. But if you're not familiar with whatever reason, just listen to the song Nailing the Holy One. That's definitely the best on here in my opinion. But there you go. Necrophobic, Darkside from 1997, if I did not say the year that record came out. Alrighty, so let's go to some CDs. Another famous one and done. This is Carnage with Dark Recollections. This came out in 1990. So you have, let me see. Yeah, this version has the demos too, which is pretty cool. What's the name of the demos? From the Day of the Lamb, the Day Man Lost demo and the Infession of Evil demo. Which the demos, they were a little bit more grindy sounding, almost like early Carcass influence, which is definitely interesting. So on this album you have basically 3 guys from Dismember. You got Maddie Karki, David Bloomquist, and Fred Espy. And then you have Michael Amott, who obviously went to join Carcass and then formed Arch Enemy. And then the bass player is Johnny Dordvek, which I don't remember what band he is in. So it's basically like Dismember / Carcass, I guess, which is pretty sweet. So there they are, the 2 Dismember guys, and then Michael before he joined on Necroticism, obviously. Yep, this is a Eric reissue, which is they put out through Eric originally, I want to say. Yep. Awesome album, definitely one of the better one and dones, along with the God Macabre. Hearing more would have been cool, but like I said, obviously, well, if we heard more, we would get Dismember, then I guess you can take the trade, because I would, obviously, Dismember is more important, but, yep. Killer album, definitely a staple of the early 90s scene. Alrighty, here's one of my favorites. This is Cemetery with an Evil Shade of Grey. So this is one of the few death metal albums that sounds spooky. Not evil, it's not like a Deicide record or anything. I say spooky because of the guitar tone. There's these super weird like pinch harmonic things that they do all over the place. I don't even know how they do it. I've tried to replicate that before, I can't figure out how they did that, so it's very interesting. So I'm not sure what they did to like do that all the time, so it's almost like a very haunting atmosphere on this record, which in by the cover you could tell too. Which their first 3 records each sound like a completely different band. This one is obviously their like pure death metal album. The one after this is like Death Doom, and the third one's kind of like gothic Death Doom, I guess, or like gothic metal, I guess. Which that third one I actually like. I haven't heard anything after the third album, but the first 3 I all like a lot, but this one's still easily the best. But I would like a vinyl copy of this really badly, but I'm not trying to pay like $500, because if you've seen the price of this online for the record, ooh, that's expensive. So yep. Cemetery, Evil Shade of Grey. If I had to rank these, this would probably be in like my top 3 of this video. So yep. Cemetery, Evil Shade of Grey, 1992. It's put out through Black Mark, so yeah, good luck getting a copy of this, because you know Black Mark's always a pain in the ass to get stuff from, unfortunately, which they had a great lineup, so it makes it even more frustrating. Alright, so this is from 1994, I want to say. 94. Yeah, recorded and mixed at Sunlight Studio, January 94. Okay, so it came out in 94 then. This is Desultory with Bitterness. So to compare them to something, I would say a little bit of like Massive Killing Capacity era Dismember with a little bit of early Unleashed. I only say Massive Killing Capacity specifically because some of the riffs remind me of that. Though it's not Death and Roll, though neither is Massive Killing Capacity, but don't get me going on that tangent, because I've always thought that being called Death and Roll is a lazy comparison. But anyway, this is a Pulverized Records reissue licensed from Metal Blades, so I guess they were Metal Blade band back in the day, which is interesting, because that's not exactly a label I think of for doing Swedish death metal, but yep. Their first 2 albums are fantastic. The third one is pretty horrible. I've heard the ones after the third they return to form, but I haven't investigated because of how bad the third one is, but I'll get around to it eventually. But yep. Desultory, Bitterness, definitely one of the better like second tier Swedish death metal albums, so check it out. Fantastic. Staying in Sweden, I just realized basically everything in this video is Swedish except like 2, so oh well. This is Execrate with Passage of Life. So this came out in 1993 on Thrash Records. This is the Dark Symphony's Dark Descent Records reissue from a couple years ago, I think. No, 2025, so last year. So Execrate, they were a Swedish band, like I said. They had their own unique sound. It's hard to compare them to anything. It's not like, oh, they sound like Dismember, like, or Grave or Unleashed or anything, but when you hear them, they sound Swedish, but you can tell they're from that country instantly, but they don't really have a, like, copy style. They definitely have their own unique style, which back in the day, bands were more unique than they were nowadays, let's be honest, which that isn't a nitpick. I like a lot of new stuff, obviously, but I'm just saying, back in the day, it was easier to be more unique with less bands out there, which it's obvious, but yeah. Check it out. Execrate, Passage of Life. Definitely a great album, one of the better early 90s Swedish albums. Alrighty, so I kind of lied. This is the only non-death metal album, so it's technically 14 in one, but calling this video almost 15 death metal albums sounded kind of stupid, so oh well. This is the only black metal album I'm going to mention today. I didn't even know this was a Sunlight Studio recording, which is definitely interesting. This is Månegarm with Nojsterious. I don't know. I'm not going to attempt to say that, but there you go. So Månegarm are a Viking black metal band, I guess, from Sweden. This isn't my favorite album by them. That would be probably the two after this, but I want to say this was the only one recorded on Sunlight Studios, so, which was definitely interesting. I didn't even know this was a Sunlight album because it doesn't sound like it. Because obviously that's not exactly a studio known for black metal, but this was definitely a nice surprise when I was looking up, doing research for this video just to see what came out in that studio, and seeing this on the list was definitely interesting, so. And this came out in 1998, I think. 98, 99, something like that. Yeah, this is a Black Lodge reissue from 2015. So, yep. Månegarm's awesome. All their albums are fantastic, but, well, not fantastic. All of them are at least good, but a bunch are great, but yep. Not my favorite, but it's definitely close, though. It's in probably my top 5 easily. But yep, check it out. Månegarm with that album title that I definitely did not pronounce correctly. The last two, then we are done. If this was ranked, this would easily be in my top 5. This is definitely one of my all-time favorite Swedish death metal albums. This is Sorcery with Bloodchilling Tales. Yep. So this is, I would say, a unique album for the scene, in my opinion. It's almost like Swedish mixed with Florida, if that makes any sense. So it's like, take like Dismember and mix it with Morbid Angel maybe. So it's like, they have a foot in both camps, which makes it pretty cool. And then I believe they broke up and they came back, and they're one of the few bands who, after the big breakup, their return to form records were actually pretty good. Are they as good as this? No, but a lot of bands, after they come back together, they kind of miss the mark. Bloom Breath, I'm looking at you, but yep. So luckily, when they came back, I think they've done 3 albums that they've returned to form, and they've all been awesome, so I need to get those eventually, but yep. Sorcery, Bloodchilling Tales. So if you like Swedish death metal and Florida death metal, and you want to hear what something would sound like if they were combined, this is one of the ones to check out, so yep. Sorcery, Bloodchilling Tales. Alrighty, last up and then we were done. So this band has completely changed direction. They've gone in a, well, you'll see what I mean. So this is Therion with Of Darkness. So obviously they're much more known for being a symphonic metal band, which honestly I've never heard any of that material. I'm only familiar with their first 2, so I could be potentially missing something out cool, but symphonic metal isn't exactly my style. Unless it's like symphonic black metal, obviously, but just straight up symphonic metal I'm not really a fan of, but. So I almost pulled this second album because that one I think is pretty underrated, but this one I think is my favorite of the first 2. Though the second one I would say is like faster and more in your face, but this one I still think is a little bit more memorable. So this came out in 1991 on, it says Peaceville, also 91, so I'm assuming that's who put out it originally, but yep. Therion of Darkness, check it out, but check out their first 2 albums. After that, like I said, I'm not familiar, so I can't really comment on that later material, but anyway, check it out, Therion of Darkness. Yeah, that's it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Next time I'll probably do a 7 Deadly Spins episode after this, and then continue on with the CDs, but we'll see what happens. Anyway, thanks for watching, have a good day, goodbye.